the world than by going out and bombing them. And I'd like to refer back to what you said before you started your talk about the Choctaw Indians presenting something like 67 pounds for famine relief in Ireland about 160 years ago. Now, how did we repay the Choctaw Indians? I know how I repaid them. As a young lad, and I'm sure like so many other young lads when they were young, we went to the pictures, if we were allowed, on a Sunday afternoon, and it was usually cowboys and Indians. And who were we shouting for? We were shouting for the cowboys. Well, the cowboys are still running America and running the world, unfortunately. And that goes to show how we, from a very young age, our minds were colonized by propaganda coming from across the Atlantic. And in a sense, we bought into it very much because there was such a huge exodus of Irish people went to America and were among the greatest number of settlers in America. And so we sort of bought into this. And unfortunately, in Ireland, we're still buying into the fact that America is the great savior of the world. That's a pile of old rope, as we all know. But I would like to find out how soon you called, earlier on you said something that rightly surprised me. I think you said, America is a stupid country. Did you, am I putting words in your mouth, or Americans were stupid or something?
I said that the people running America are either invincibly ignorant,
yes,
or they're so tainted with hubris that they're living in the last century.
Okay, so then we can assume that the people that elected them are equally so, because the country gets the government it deserves and votes into power.
Americans are totally misinformed by the media. They buy all this crap. They're told to look at celebrity bingo. I mean, it's horrendous.
Just to complete what I was to say, and I'm sorry.
Sorry, a nation that created some of the best music, a nation that created some of the best movies, a nation that has actually created some of the best science, a nation that is a mix of all ethnicities and races from all over the world, a nation black, Hispanic, and white, and Native Americans and black Africans, and here we are in a room in Dublin, we are saying Americans are either stupid or misinformed, and a nation that had actually 11 million behind Bernie Sanders, right? I think we need to be a little bit
God
more...
bless America.
We have to be a little bit more...
That's another piece of the whole rubbish. This God bless America. God must be absent from America these times.
I think she's pissed. I think she's really angry at us. God.
Did you say she?
Yeah, I did.
Well, we won't go into that one, but did you ever go to the Dublin Horse Show and see the crowds of people queuing for the women's loo and the number of men going in much quicker? If God was a woman, he wouldn't have made it so much easier for men to go and spend a penny. That is my theory that says God is definitely not a woman. That is a side.
That's a new theory. I hadn't heard it.
But what I really wanted to ask you, Ray, was...
sure, go ahead, sorry.
Why? Now, you're a man, obviously, of great moral courage and integrity, and thank you for coming and speaking to us. But I would like to know, the fact that you are a man of such enormous integrity and moral courage, how did it take you so long to get into the fray? You were working, was it, for 37 years for the CIA?
27.
27, sorry, what's a decade between friends?
Okay, well,
how did it take you that long to get around to the fact? And so can we blame the mass of American people for being unaware, or not wanting? There are none so blind as those who will not see, and the Americans will not see that they're being fooled to their eyeballs morning, noon and night.
Well, okay, and that's why I spoke about invincible ignorance, okay? If you have a steady diet of the kind of media that we have, it's very, very difficult to find out what's going on in the world. You have to know where to look on the web, on the internet, and you have to have time to do that. A lot of Americans have 2 jobs. They come home, they feed the kids, they put their feet up, and they watch Fox News, and they think they're getting news. Now, as far as my career is concerned, I was able to do honest analysis in my part of the agency. We were hermetically sealed off from the operators. People overthrew governments. It was a structural flaw to put the people who came back from World War II, who overthrew governments, together with the analysts. the mix never works. But we were able to speak truth to power as Harry Truman, who created us, wanted us to do. And then later, right after I retired, when I saw that ethos, I mean, it sounds corny, right? We were able to tell the president the truth because we had no political agenda. We didn't have to, that's why Truman didn't put us under the Pentagon. They were saying that the Soviets were always 10 feet tall, right? Didn't put us under the State Department. They're all just defending their policy. He wanted to know, what do you think, you know? Vietnam, LBJ. These blue-suited generals, they're saying that they got a big new weapon called a B-52, and they got big, big bombs, and they're going to seal off the Ho Chi Minh Trail. What do you guys think about that? Well, we suppressed the laugh. We waited a decent interval, 2 days, and we came back and said, now, Mr. President, you have to realize that the Ho Chi Minh Trail doesn't look anything like I-66 or I-95 or I-5. It's not an interstate highway. It's 162 trails through the jungles, and you can't even see most of them because of the canopy. That's number one. Number two, Ho Chi Minh is never going to give up. Almost nobody has ever given up just on the bombing. We know Ho Chi Minh. We took him into Hanoi on our shoulders at the end of the war. He's not going to give up, and especially if you just bomb. So if you want to invade with 500,000 people, you still won't win. And we told him that. Okay. Now, what did he decide to do? Well, he decided to go with the generals. Why? Because he didn't want to be the first American president to lose a war. And so what happened? He became the first American president to lose a war. So intelligence can be good, but presidents can completely disavow it, and if they don't want to listen to it, try something else politically. So I have I have a couple of regrets. I could have blown the whistle a couple of times when I didn't, but I had nothing to do with the kinds of stuff you saw there. And when I saw them actually advocating torture, when the head of the CIA was beating on Senator John McCain, no, you have to give an exception for us. You got legislation that's going to prohibit torture? You got to make sure CIA is not included. And then I said, this is it. I took this big medallion they gave me at retirement. I threw it back at the head of the House Intelligence Committee and said, I don't want to be associated, however remotely, with an agency that engaged openly in torture. And I was thinking of my grandchildren, Grandpa, so you went to CIA. What's it like to torture people? I want to be able to say, well, look, I didn't know anything about that. I certainly didn't own it, and I did everything I could when I found out to dissociate myself with this heinous practice. So it's a very complicated sort of thing, and if I sound defensive, I guess it's because I am, because we had something really good going, and then before Iraq, my former colleagues were suborned into preparing, not mistaken, but fraudulent intelligence to justify what Nuremberg called a war of aggression. Didn't get any worse than that, okay? And that's why we started up our little veteran intelligence professionals.
Thank you, Grace.
Thank you. Question will come for Roger,
I just want to make, just finishing up, I suppose, that if there were 2.5 million Russian troops using Ireland as an air force base, we would be protesting against that. If there were 2.5 million Chinese troops using Ireland as an air force base,
Too bloody right we would.
we would be. What we in this country are faced with, that isn't happening. It's 2.5 million American troops. It doesn't make us anti-American. It certainly doesn't make us anti the American people.
No.
But that's, for us, that's the core issue. Either you believe in Irish independence, an Irish democracy, an Irish non-involvement in these imperial wars, or you don't. And that's what we're about in Panama. We're arguing that it's in our interests as a people not to be involved in these imperial wars. That's why we together, and was funded by the Irish anti-war movement and ourselves, on the issue of the number of US planes that have landed in Shannon Airport.